The feeling in the community seems to be one of it won't be soon enough when we have a council again. The president of the Chamber of Commerce, Laurie Molyneux, certainly holds that view, even though he believes the administrator has done a good job.
I think we've been long enough without an elected council. The city, I feel, has to have a representative, as the Lord Mayor was, and even from that point of view alone, I think that everybody regrets the absence of the council. But certainly I feel it's past time that we did have a council election and had our probably 12 men and true serving.
Liberal MLC Virginia Chadwick says she expects the Liberals to run a full field of candidates on September 13, but remains critical of the sacking of council in the first place.
I think they were quite spurious, and indeed it took 18 months of various inquiries to even come up with the ridiculous report that we had. The sacking of the council was, I believe, political, and I still believe it was political.
The president of the Trades Hall Council, Dennis Nichols, also welcomes the announcement of the election date and believes the restructuring of council will improve its running.
Yes, I think the smaller council will make it much more efficient. The fact that aldermen will be elected across the city will give them a citywide responsibility. They won't be concentrating so much on the small local little backyard issues. They'll be able to deal more with policy issues for the whole of the city.
Information brochures and special kits for teachers have already been distributed to schools by the Department of Education. The department hopes this program will help build self-esteem, confidence, decision-making and communication among school children. It will also try to foster assertiveness among children, making them more able to say no when offered drugs. The new program launched today will be managed by the Newcastle branch of the National Safety Council of Australia and will be stressing the point that it is okay to say no and not be victimised. It will also concentrate on the dangers involved in alcohol abuse and cigarette smoking.
Teachers need to be selected, or people need to be selected to pass this on under the proven methods of providing information to the school kids at that level, and therefore certain activities had to be produced with a kit for those people to teach it. The concept includes a backup of television advertisements in putting kids in the situation where they have to choose to say no or yes.
Thanks, mate, don't need the stuff.
Everybody's entitled to choose how they behave, to choose whether or not they drink or smoke. It's your right to choose. It's okay to say no.
It's obvious that these programs haven't worked in the past in schools. What makes you think this one is going to work?
We believe it will work from the research that's been done overseas. The realish method, of course, that we believe is that we've got to treat the kids and the people that are exposed to this in this situation that it's their right to choose and they can say no.
It's expected the 3 education videos will be screened from Monday and posters and information brochures distributed to schools to be used in conjunction with their drug education programs.
The meeting at the Workers' Club was originally called to discuss the Coal Industry Tribunal's ruling in the long-running battle with colliery proprietors over a new agreement. There was general acceptance of what the tribunal handed down in regard to the log of claims, and this will now be put to pit-top meetings before the end of next week. However, Thursday's Arbitration Commission ruling in the latest wage case, which rejected immediate implementation of national superannuation, becomes a complicating factor. The combined mining unions wrote to the Australian Coal Association immediately on Thursday afternoon, seeking a consent agreement on industry superannuation. They are still waiting for a reply, and it appears will only accept one type of response.
If there's no satisfactory understanding on the superannuation, then I don't see that we'll be in a position to give any undertakings. So we'd hope that the Coal Association will consider all the aspects of what the future might be, including the new wage fixing principles, including the need to clear up the superannuation situation in this industry, and we'll come back with a positive response.
It does seem, though, that the superannuation issue leaves the industry on a bit of a knife edge, that nothing really has been resolved.
Yes, that would probably be a correct assessment. I think we're all hoping that the national wage case would bring down a positive result as far as superannuation is concerned. They haven't ruled it out. They've left provision for people to negotiate it and to reach consent agreements in the industry. But if we have a look what's happened in the last 12 months in the coal industry, it's unlikely that we'll reach a consent agreement. So they've really left us on the knife edge, there's no doubt about that.
Iken, who holds a number of national and country-age titles and records, has an exceptional technique and the determination and will to win going with it, according to one of this nation's most experienced coaches, Les Lazarus.
So he's very unfortunate. His birthday's on the same day of the carnival, which means that he swims 2 years older. But he'll do well.
That might be fortunate though, Les. That might be the test for the young fellow, and when he jumps it at that point in time, he knows he's right for the next 2 years.
Well, I don't know if it's a test because he got selected to go to Japan in August, and he got picked for the 15 to 17 year age group, and he's only 14.
Well,
so he's done the test already.
He's done the test already. What about his national records? He's got a number of those and records in the country. I mean, we'd be here all day talking about.
Well, he's got every record in the state country except the 100 freestyle for his age group. He's got the national record for 200 metres medley in 2:12.7. He's got the 100 metres backstroke record, 61.7, and he's got the 200 metres backstroke record. So he's
got the form on the board.
He's going great.
How long before we read of Mark Iken emerging as somebody that makes a headline on the back of the paper?
2 years.
A prediction.
2 years. Not a prediction. 2 years. Guaranteed.
The 2nd Battalion began training in Newcastle in 1860. It was the first volunteer rifle regiment formed in New South Wales, under the threat of a communist Russian invasion. Since then, it served its time in the First and Second World Wars until it disbanded, only to be reassembled under the Royal New South Wales Regiment in 1960. On show in the Army quarters at Hamilton is a list of the battalion's commanding officers, including some historic names. Lieutenant Colonel Scobie, CO in 1915, was killed in the battle at Lone Pine. Lieutenant Colonel Blamey, commanding officer in 1916, was Australia's only appointed Field Marshal. And Brigadier Gallagher, to whom the Soldiers Club takes their name, fought on the Malaysian campaign and was put in charge of the POWs in Singapore. Last night, however, normal training sessions for the Army Reserves were disbanded, and a novelty games night showed up the true grit of our future soldiers. And what would a celebration be without a birthday cake prepared by the Army Camp cook? Whilst time was taken out to celebrate the 26th anniversary of the Reformation, the early records of the 2nd Battalion will remain written on the pages of our history books.
In fighting history, it can be traced back to the Gallipoli campaign. In fact, one of the first commanding officers was killed at the Battle of Lone Pine, and then the battalion went on to fight in France and was disbanded after the First World War. During the Second World War, it was re-raised as the second Battalion and saw action in North Africa at the Battle of Tobruk, and then on and through the Kokoda campaign in New Guinea.
The Bill Turner Cup soccer games kicked off in 1979 with 34 teams competing. Since then, the field has grown to include a total of 321 under-15 schoolboy teams throughout the state. Last night at the Macquarie Field, Spears Point, 6 teams battled it out in the regional finals. Cardiff in the green and gold played Glendale sporting black and white. Katara met with West Wallsend and Whitebridge joined up with Broadmeadow High School. Winners of the first 2 games will now meet, and the winner of the third game will play the victors in the New England competition. The winning teams from both those games will then play Central Coast or Sydney to make it to the semi-finals, with the grand final kicking off at Spears Point in August. Newcastle teams have dominated the competition for the past 7 years, and according to the Cup's namesake and living soccer legend Bill Turner, there's still room for more teams to compete for the coveted Cup.
Well, from 34 to 321 in 7 years, and there are still a lot more schools out there. I think that it'll grow probably 400. I'd like to see that day come. And we may match the FA Cup in England, who knows?
Hello, I'm Matthew Clark. The Minister for Housing, Frank Walker, was in the area today opening a new Department of Housing office in Toronto. Mr Walker slammed Federal Treasurer Paul Keating over his decision to introduce a withholding tax on foreign borrowings. He says it's disastrous news for interest rates.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
Commenting on the agreement, Mr Parry said the purchase of the Hungerford Hill Wine Village will complement the Parry Corporation's strategy for future investments in the tourist industry. Hungerford Hill's chairman, Mr John Parker, says the sale will leave his company in a strong position with its ongoing winery and vineyard operations and will lead to a strong growth in sales of Hungerford Hill wines. The amount involved in the sale agreement has not been revealed.
The HMAS Cessnock was commissioned 3 years ago and is based in Darwin. While it lay moored at Newcastle Harbour today on a rare trip out of Northern Territory waters, its crew assembled in the grounds of the Cessnock Technical College for a ceremony steeped in tradition, granting freedom of the city to Lieutenant Commander John Young and his men, the highest honour the city could bestow on a service or unit. Although the title has little practical application today, it recognises a special bond that has existed between the city and the 2 vessels which have carried its name. The first HMAS Cessnock was scrapped in the late 1940s after clocking up an impressive record in World War II.
It's something that we've been looking forward to for a long time.
In the college grounds, and its original crew reunited today to watch the crew of the new vessel receive their civic tribute. The men were inspected by the Mayor of Cessnock, Alderman Gordon Williams, who found their drill impressive and their dress immaculate. Following the inspection, the Mayor officially handed over the Freedom of the City scroll. The crew then exercised their right of access to Cessnock by marching in full regalia down Darwin Street. The crew of the patrol boat will have the chance to return Cessnock's hospitality tomorrow. The HMAS Cessnock will be open for inspection at Newcastle Harbour from 10:30 until 5.
Williamtown Public School is much like any other, except that it is located virtually next door to the home of Australia's brand new and very noisy F-18 fighters. As early as 1982, the school committee requested information from the Education Department about how the new aircraft would affect the level of noise pollution. Last night, the school received an unexpected answer from the Area Director of Education, Alan Beard. Mr. Beard said a study of noise from aircraft at the school concluded that it was unacceptably high and would probably get worse. He said that on the basis of the report, he would have to recommend the school be closed. Principal Fran Corner says the department has overreacted. She says teachers and students have always had to deal with the roar of fighters.
Some days it's noisy. It's hard to disguise that fact, but all the schools in the area will complain about the same thing. Some days you get continual interruptions. But today, for example, we've had something, we may have heard in the distance something like 3 aeroplanes. None of them have come over the school or even near the school.
So do you think the department has overreacted to the noise problem?
I think for the stage that noise problem is now, there is no need for concern.
Today, at least, the school seemed peaceful enough. During my 2-hour visit, I heard only 4 aircraft fly over. The possible closure of the school was the main topic of conversation at a ladies' auxiliary lunch at the school today. Secretary Maureen Tarrant says the mothers don't want their children to travel long distances to other schools.
Well, I don't think any of us would like to do that, simply because we've come out here to live by choice. It's a beautiful area, it's a beautiful school. It's very well thought of by the children, and the P&C and the Ladies Auxiliary think very highly of the school, do a lot for it, and none of us want to send our children to any other school.
The future of the school remains in question. A committee of parents and teachers will meet to discuss the problem with the department, but it will be some months yet before a final decision is made.
The citizens group's meeting last night to select 12 candidates out of the 15 standing was made easier with 3 withdrawals. Former Alderman Harry Nash and Ian Campbell withdrew their nominations, along with newcomer Scott Derwin. Aldermanic leader and former Deputy Lord Mayor Don Geddes is the group's Lord Mayoral candidate. Sacked Alderman Dawn Lanham, Bill Hanley and John Sara will be on the ballot form, as will newcomers John Hardigan and Ray Burton. David Rankin, Del Saunders, Mark Skelton, Wayne Condon, Tony Legovich and Rob Langley fill the remaining positions to make up the Citizens Group's ticket. The party's policies are yet to be released, but leader Don Geddes says they will all promote Newcastle and its citizens.
Mr Geddes, you are the Citizens Group's candidate for the next Lord Mayor of Newcastle. Are you confident that you have the voters' support?
I think the people of Newcastle are aware that my interest is in this city, and I'm not responsible to any caucus decisions in Sydney, either that the other political parties are. So I'm accountable to the people of Newcastle, and I think they know me well enough to know that I will fight for the city and for the individuals to make certain Newcastle achieves the success it's entitled to.
Do you think you will be the next Lord Mayor of the city?
Yes, I do.
William Bowmore has lived in this large convict-built house for the past 30 years, alone yet never lonely, for he has some of Rodin's greatest subjects for company. A bronze replica of Balzac and one of the undraped burghers of Calais are permanent companions. There are only 8 of these statues, cast from the originals by the Rodin Museum in Paris, in the world. The statues form part of a collection which many private galleries would give their eye teeth for. Instead, it decorates the rooms of Mr Bowmore's private residence. Byzantine friezes and Roman mosaics contrast vividly with his more conventional furnishings. Over the years, Mr Bowmore has opened the collection to the public to raise money for various charities. The doors will open for the last time this Saturday for 1 week. Mr Bowmore says he will sell his house and shift the collection to a larger centre.
I probably have made a mistake by developing it to 2 huge, large proportions, and consequently I think it is beyond the cost which anyone in Newcastle could expect to ever purchase, even if I gave it at a very cheap rate.
So what are you looking for? How do you want to see it housed?
Chiefly, I think if it goes to a big city, where it can be used for tourism and charities, mix the 2 together, and I think it will do a very good service to the nation.
And what about William Bowmore?
Oh, I don't matter. I've been around too long now.
When the doors close on the collection in 11 days' time, Newcastle's loss will be another centre's gain. But Mr Bowmore is adamant about 2 points. The collection will be kept together, and at this stage it won't be going to a public gallery.
The figures come from a survey of 234 Hunter homes conducted in 1984. They're the most recent statistics on expenditure available and the first offering a regional breakdown. The survey shows that each household here spends $363.49 a week. That means that we spend per person around $135 a week. Food is a major item of our weekly expenditure here in the Hunter. The survey says we spend about $71.23 a week per household on food, and that represents about 20% of our weekly outgoings. The other big area of local spending is transport, $64.53 a week. This would include car and petrol costs, as well as public transport and taxi fares. A surprise is that our weekly expenditure on tobacco and alcohol is among the lowest in the state. Fortunately, spending on personal care items, such as soap, deodorant and shampoos, is equally as low. The survey also shows the big difference between housing costs in Sydney and Newcastle. Local consumers spend considerably less. The figures, although 2 years old, should be relevant to the retail sector.
I think they're of interest to a lot of people in the Newcastle economy. I think the figures shed light on people's expenditure and therefore are of interest to retailers, business people, car sellers, for example. When I speak about retailers, chemists, personal care, grocery items. So it's a whole range of people who are interested in these figures.